Well, welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Diana, and I'm the Global Blockchain Business Council's Head of Research and Sustainability. It's a pleasure today to welcome you to GBBC's GSMI series of roundtables. And today we are focusing on digital identity, and we'll give an overview on the GSMI 4.0 Digital Identity Report. We're here with the chair, Sankarshan from Dhiway, and Jim Loperfido, who's a digital asset strategist at GBBC, and they worked very hard to coordinate a lot of the elements of the working group over the course of the last year, and we will present the result of many months of working group contributions, and then have an open discussion with the working groups. So thank you for everyone who's here today. The goal is to define action items, topics in need of continued conversations, and ways we can identify the digital identity topic as the role of blockchain continues to support this. So I will go ahead and turn it to Jim and Sankarshan for your presentation for about 15 minutes.
Thank you, Diana. We'll take you guys through this presentation, and Sankarshan as the primary author of the GSMI 4.0 paper, I think will take the lead, and I'll interject. So Sankarshan, you just let me know when you want to advance on the slides. But we'll start here, and I'll allow you to take it away, Sankarshan, and introduce us.
Thank you, Diana and Jim. Yes, I think what we want to do is, this is something that we did intentionally and very mindfully, that we wanted to talk about not just the GSMI 4.0 work on digital identity, but kind of explore the journey that has happened since the first report came out, which was GSMI 2.0. Way back in 2021. Jim was leading that effort at that point in time, and I think it's relevant for all of us here to think about why this was groundbreaking at that point in time. Because if we all go back and think about 2 years back or 3 years back from today, there was a lot of conversations around digital identity projects and deployments coming up. The technology that was powering all of this was evolving. And there was a lot of apprehension in the market that there's going to be the adoption of the technology and the architecture will take time. So there was a need to consolidate and present some of the standards, some of the efforts, and some of the examples to be able to drive home the message and build the confidence that this is a pursuit of with technology and with social implications that is necessarily going to have long-term implications. So the first report, the link to the report is there on the slide, but we can also paste it on the chat if required. It's there on the GBBC website, obviously. It was essentially, it was a comprehensive effort to map the blockchain and digital asset landscape. And like everything at GBBC, it brought together a whole domain of experts, practitioners, and those who are involved in regulation. Because at that point in time, there was also a lot of emerging practices in terms of how to do regulatory approaches as the digital transformation was taking place. Now, one of the key things in that report was that along with the fact that it kind of highlighted some of the standards, it also established some of the definition and concepts. It was necessary at that point to create these kind of common understanding of this concept, because the challenge that usually happens in all kinds of conversations such as this one is that what we effectively mean something to be is not equally understood by everybody participating, especially those who are building solutions or those who are in the government trying to adopt and deploy solutions. So I think that was the most significant step, along with the fact that at that point in time, I remember going back and thinking about it, and there was no report that was approaching it from this direction. So while today in 2024, we might just think, oh, it was something that was published and is back for the archives, but it is a very strong foundation from going from GSMI 2.0 to the report that we built out through through quite a number of months in 2023, and that became the GSMI 4.0. I'm going to stop a bit
So it's
over here.
probably setting the foundations, I would say, to
Yes.
talk about standards for digital identity, which later we unpacked, right?
Yes. I wanted to stop over here and just ask Jim about, because he's been on this journey for a while, from 2.0 to 4.0, and in between through various things. I wanted to check with him if he wanted to have a bit of comments before we go on to 4.0.
Yeah, sure. I think my perspective was that, for whatever faults or issues the Web3 and asymmetric cryptography enabled world has, the proof of concept where you can own the keys and not have to rely on a third party to access, take ownership, and potentially monetize your own data was the key innovation, right? That kind of Bitcoin in by itself proved, and spurred, of course, this international movement of decentralization with blockchain and the internet. And so to me, the ability to flip that model on its head, where historically people have traded their convenience for privacy, not understanding how their data was being monetized with or without their consent at points in time, was a paradigm shift. And so that was what kind of spurred my interest in it. I was working for a decentralized communication network in 2017, 18. And I realized then how powerful an SDK was inside of each application on your phone, and how much data these people were collecting without the user really understanding what was going on. And so in my mind, I saw the opportunity for people to take ownership of their data in an interoperable and portable setting where the user is in control. So that user-centric approach in the decentralized landscape, I think, solves a lot of problems: security, privacy, portability, and rapid access, and understanding who else is accessing your data at any point in time. And GDPR obviously set the table in terms of legislation for this stuff. And graciously, Sandra had me testify on the New York Privacy Act at the New York State Senate when that was in motion. And what I realized was how quickly these technologies were evolving, and how far behind legislation was lagging their implementation. And so obviously there's this idea of a working code first model, where a lot of the times regulation will follow the actual implementations, especially amongst startups. And we watched this kind of thing happen in the transportation world with Uber, right? Where Uber was innovating ahead of policy and legislation. And to be frankly, I don't think that there was anything wrong with it. I think in a lot of ways it benefited a lot of people, right? However, we've also witnessed profit incentives kind of malinform the creation of either standards, businesses, or the economics that surrounds these emerging technologies. And the one warning that I gave the legislators in the New York State Senate hearing was that the confluence of technologies that we're witnessing today, especially AI, are advancing at such a rapid pace that in order to put the proper ethical guardrails around them, we have to have some degree of anticipation. And that's what spurred my initial interest in self-sovereign identity, and kind of changing this model and embedding all of the protections for the consumer into the technology itself, given that technology and the code that composes it in some ways or in some forms in the future may represent the law itself. So that was my initial curiosity and perspective around digital identity and its evolution. And I witnessed from then to now multiple standards bodies, and Sankarshan knows them better than I do, who achieved to create some type of interoperability such that the ability to provide these tenets of self-sovereignty would be embedded in every piece of technology, and would be interoperable in a degree that allowed for frictionless value transfer as your assets, your digital assets, that data, your personally identifiable information, and the data assets that relate to it have value. So that was my initial understanding and perspective, and why I wanted to get deeply involved in this topic. And I think that it serves as a foundation for all the technologies that need to be built upon it in order for us to achieve some degree of decentralization and maybe change profit incentives for the better in order to hopefully sustain achievement of the SDGs. So that's my quick summary.
Yeah, so now moving on to GSMI 3.0 and 4.0 and beyond, what work has been released for GSMI 4.0. We'll give you an overview.
Yeah, so moving from GSMI 2.0 to 4.0 also means that we need to kind of, in a very quick way, try and anticipate as to what has happened in the intervening years. Because if we talk about self-sovereign identity and digital identity and all of that, a key part of this is the need to have the digital infrastructure in place to be able to deliver with robustness and scalability, the idea that you can have self-sovereign identity-based solutions available. And during this intervening years from, let's say, even before 2.0 and well into beyond when we published GSMI 4.0 in November, there have been quite a few instances, quite a few entities who have been leading I would say, the charge on ensuring that the adopters have the confidence that one, you can have the trust infrastructure built out that can deliver self-sovereign identity-centric solutions. Two, you can have a robust set of human-centric principles that allow you to define what self-sovereign identity-based solutions is. And three, you can actually have the way to deliver it at scale without having to run the risk of creating unintended consequences. I think one of the things that is very significant to point out is that during all this time, these entities like the Sovereign Foundation, who have had during the initial years provided the infrastructure to be able to deliver this, have also now been able to deliver various other necessary aspects of the self-sovereign identity ecosystems like governance frameworks, principles, and others that allow adopters to look and adopt all of these activities and be able to deliver something that is of value and is enduring. So the focus on the report of GSMI 4.0 has been very simple, I would say, that as more and more digital identity solutions have been introduced into the market, both by private sector players and by the government, mostly by the government, because at the end of the day, it is generally the government which is the single largest issuer of digital identity anywhere. Uh, it has a couple of things have emerged, is that there have been sometimes poor choices made in the design of the solutions that have led to various unintended consequences and harms that lead to people, the recipients, being excluded from services, or their digital identities no longer being valid, thus kind of rendering them kind of digitally stateless. So the report that we have out essentially focuses around how do you arrive at, if you have the knowledge of the standards and the infrastructure uh, and the uh, and the necessary software to build digital identity solutions, how do you build them around a collection of principles from which you can actually create robust human-centric solutions? And it introduces the concepts of some very preliminary concepts of risk assessment. It also highlights some of the use cases, both in terms of how organizations have done digital transformation from the earlier non-digital identity-based models to new one. Especially one example that we have in the report is the UN pension fund. Uh, and also kind of, in a way, the report talks about the fact that how the current trend in digital identity solutions is very strongly incorporating biometrics while on the same or at the same point, the topic of biometrics is fraught with very contentious conversations, including how accurate biometrics is, as to the fact that there's a whole lot of standards around biometrics that need to be really accepted as standards and not just specifications floating around. So biometrics, data security, the principles of digital identity, better digital wallet or identity stores, and also risk assessment. These form some of the key concepts that are introduced in the report. And but that's not all. The report also hints at is that there's a whole bunch of open questions that remain. It's not like that we move from 2.0 to 4.0 and we think that, okay, this is all there is, because we see that there's a large area of open questions and concerns that we need to discuss as a group, both here in GBBC and outside in various forums, to be able to push the boundaries of how to have digital identities that actually provide agency, better governance, control, and do not end up creating exclusion. So that, in a nutshell, is what we have been trying to put together as the 4.0 report. Again, the link to the report is there on the slide, and I think we have already posted it on chat. This is essentially so every report of this kind, when you bring together a large group, you need some kind of a North Star in terms of to be able to ensure that you drive the reports towards something that's meaningful and easily understood, right? Because we are not writing for only the experts in the domain, we are also writing for those who are getting introduced to the topic, or perhaps who are non-technical in this domain yet. So one of the things that we took up has been that it's a problem statement that has existed, that there's a significantly large number of people who lack proper identification, and the fact that there is a growth in the decentralized networks that are being built around to be able to deliver the concepts of interoperable, portable, and secure digital identity. And obviously, the report does not only specify that blockchain-based solutions are the only way you can do this, but there are new emerging approaches as well, which do not need a blockchain, but yet provide some of these characteristics that we seek in good, robust, and safe digital identities that can be delivered. Dan, I think we can actually kind of move on to the open discussion about.
Yeah, I think if we go through, we can cover a lot of this in the open discussion. Maybe quickly, if we go to the next slide in the report.
Yeah, the next
Elliot.
slide is actually something that I alluded to. This is the principles of SSI that the Sovereign Foundation has developed with collaboration from the community, and it is available from the Sovereign Foundation's website. As you can see, it is specifically focused on ensuring that we have agency, authority, and integrity of the digital identity or the self-sovereign identity that is generated using the self-sovereign identity principles. And there's a lot of detail on the Sovereign Foundation site, and that I encourage you to go ahead and read up, because it provides you with the perspective that is necessary when thinking about digital identity. Digital identity, obviously, when we talk about it, it goes through a life cycle because it's a process. You kind of go through a very simple set of steps. You enroll somebody through establishing their identity, you validate their identity, you issue them with the digital identity through the process of credentialing. They use the identity in data exchange, access services, and eventually the issuing organization actually ends up managing through various kinds of updations, revocation. Revocation actually is, again, a very interesting open topic that we at some point need to go up and go and talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are some of the digital identity standards. These are not obviously an exhaustive list, but just a small set of standards. And yes, so the report basically has focus on digital wallets, some of the technical considerations, and we also have some of the non-technical considerations. Personally, in my opinion, I think the non-technical considerations often get a short shrift when discussing technology around SSI. So we feel that it is
Very important.
important to continue to discuss this and drive them in the direction that we want them to go.
Yeah. And that being said, thank you so much again, Jim and Sankarshan, and thank you so much to the entire working group for all the effort that you've put in toward this report. It's been very valuable as a resource for the community, and we hope to continue expanding upon this effort moving forward. And I think we can now stop the recording and start an open discussion with the roundtable's participants on really next steps after this paper. How do we make this paper more actionable? How do we engage the community into actual solutions